iron in the soul. What's up, my boy? This is Iron in the Soul, back with another video. Please subscribe to my channel, like this video, share, leave a comment, let me know what you think about my content. Let's get to work today. Let's talk about a very important subject. Let's talk about XXXtentacion and Astral Projection. And I think this gives me an opportunity to really just get into how deeply these hip-hop artists think about life in the spirit world, the spirit realm. It's not about just rapping about what happens in the streets. It's about rapping about real life and trying to understand the three main questions we all have as humans, and that is, why am I here? First of all, where did I come from? Why am I here? And where am I going? And so as a hip-hop artist, XXXtentacion was able to build a cult-like following. His songs has millions of views. I think his song Sad has, I believe, about 1 billion views, if not more. And just the way he was able to talk about the depression and just the suicidal thoughts that so many people from his generation struggle with. And it's something that I think needs to be more awareness brought to this subject matter. And that is the struggle with depression and sadness and misery that so many young people have. And I think that's something that we take for granted, and there should be more research and more effort put towards addressing these subjects. And music is a very powerful way of doing that. And it resonates with you on a very deep and very personal level. And so I don't think it's a mistake he was able to get such a following, because he tapped into that, you know. And I think his song Look at Me is very insightful, very powerful aspect into a young man's psychology. You know, let's talk about it. Young men don't want to be ignored. We want to be acknowledged. We want to be respected. And this is one of the reasons why there was such a beef between King David and his son Absalom. Is because David ignored Absalom for, I believe, about 7 years. And eventually, that ignoring his son turned to a rage where Absalom eventually tried to take the throne from King David. And this is what happens when the prince is ignored by the king. The prince becomes furious. The anger is created within him. And I think XXXtentacion struggled with that. You know, at times being ignored as a young man, being ignored by his mother and family at times. And so his music was very powerful in that way and reached millions of people even after his death. I think it's very sad how he died, and I have my questions about that, whether that was a sacrifice for the music industry and the secret societies and whatnot. That is a possibility. I've done a lot of research on the Freemasons, the secret society, the Illuminati. I've watched hundreds of videos, and so it is something I believe is a reality. And essentially it is, you know, used. Many names are used to describe this, but at the end of the day, it's essentially one topic, and that is the occult. The occult is very real, and it's something that you as a fan, and also those of you who aspire to be hip-hop artists, should be very aware of, know what you're getting yourself into. But the purpose of this is to talk about not so much just his career, that would require a separate video topic for itself, but really just his understanding of this thing called astral projection. And I want to kind of talk about that and how they can apply to you in your life day by day. Astral projection is essentially seeking this out-of-body experience in a voluntary manner, which happens through occult practice and essentially contacting demons or getting the assistance of demons to have this out-of-body experience. Now, as people, Wikipedia has researched this, 1 out of 10 people say they have an out-of-body experience. And so an out-of-body experience by itself isn't necessarily bad or evil. The Apostle Paul himself, according to New Testament Greek scriptures, had an out-of-body experience when he was called up to the 3rd heaven. I've talked about this before in previous videos. There are 3 heavens. The first heaven is a reference to the sky itself, where the birds abide, birds in the air, and the sky, and the sun. And then you have the 2nd heaven, which is where demons, fallen angels, and Satan live. And then you have the 3rd heaven, which is a reference to the kingdom of the Most High God. And so you have the 3rd heaven where God dwells. You have the 2nd heaven, which is essentially a demonic Luciferian kingdom. And then you have the 1st heaven, which refers to the sky itself. And so Paul had an out-of-body experience when he was called up to the 3rd heaven. It was an involuntary out-of-body experience, and that's fine and that's healthy. I believe that the rapper Quando Rondo, based on the interview I saw with him, he had an out-of-body experience on the day that, or night rather, that King Von was killed and murdered in cold blood. And I believe he really contacted God, and he was asking for mercy, and God gave him mercy, and he survived that night. I don't remember his exact words, but he was basically saying he had a conversation with God. He was going to get pulled up into this tunnel. Literally. That's how it is, because once you die, it happens quickly. Excuse me. And so God gave him a chance, and he was able to come out of that alive. And so he had a very real out-of-body experience the day that King Von died. And so this is very real. People experience this. That was an example of an involuntary out-of-body experience. And so when it's involuntary, that can be of God. That can be spiritual and very helpful. When you seek this experience in a voluntary way through the occult, through false religion, and through contacting demons, that's when you tap into the occult. And XXXtentacion, as much as I like him as an artist, as a man who had a warrior spirit, I appreciate that and respect that. And just had this fire in him that really inspired people, that made you, as Tupac coined it very perfectly, feel him. I've listened to his music. I like some of his songs. He has a very powerful warrior spirit that I appreciate. I appreciate that warrior spirit. It's so necessary in this day and age, especially in the last days with young men. And when you can have that warrior spirit and inspire people and motivate people to pursue their goals. He did a lot of teaching, did a lot of lives. He wasn't just rapping, but I found it interesting, just the videos I watched about him and the documentaries, how his fans really looked to him for advice. I mean, they were treating him like he was this seasoned counselor or mentor. They had that much respect for him. And so he had a way of really, he is definitely an example of a natural leader to be as young as he was. He was very young, and he had that natural leadership ability, which he was unfortunately not really given a fair chance to really develop. I mean, you could just imagine what someone like XXXtentacion would have done 5-10 years from now, or someone like Tupac Shakur, who died such young, tragic deaths, you know, and such a waste. And it's very sad. This is a very unfortunate reality of life when young princes leave the earth too soon and don't get a chance to live their full potential and to reach as many people as they can. And so that's very sad. And I find it kind of ironic that his song Sad has so many views on it, because it kind of really highlights a very real aspect of his life. Just the tragedy of a young man with potential and skill and talent to just be taken from the earth, just like that. And so I feel that astral projection is something that we who believe in the Hebrew and Greek scriptures should not pursue, because I believe it's a voluntary out-of-body experience that can be empowered by demons and fallen angels, as opposed to an involuntary out-of-body experience that can be the direct result of the power of God, and you have nothing to do with that. So that's my take on that. Rest in peace to XXXtentacion. And I feel that there's a lot of things we can learn from this man and his work and how he inspired a generation. This is your brother Iron the Soul. Please feel free to follow my channel. Hit that comment section. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about this. Be strong, man. Peace.